Hi everybody, this is a new Kings of War battle report, Call to Arms Season 4, Round 2, Order of the Green Lady versus Trident Realm. And guess who my opponent is? It's none other than the legendary Jeff Traish!
Hi, how are you?
Hello there! I like to watch battle reports to get better at games. So I started making short, summarized battle reports that focus on learning points. So welcome to my channel, Newbie Dice. Do like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you enjoy my videos. Okay, so welcome back. Firstly, before we go into our game, we just like to talk a little bit about dice statistics, because I think one of the reasons Jeff and I have been talking a lot is the expectation of dice in my battle reports were more realistic. And so yeah, we'd like to have a little bit of a conversation about dice statistics. And this was a article or infographic posted by Nick Williams. It's got a lot of good points, so we would like to expand on it a little bit together.
Yes.
Yeah. So firstly, sometimes when you calculate your odds, you just think about the average damage you have dealt. This is a blurb that you would say. But to actually get the exact average damage, which is what Nick is trying to say, is only about 20% or 20%, if you can see in all these examples and dice simulations.
Yeah, so it's the same as rolling a 7 on a normal 2 dice. You'd find the average is the same.
Yeah, about 20%, I would assume. Yeah. So of course, if you add that up, that means to deal 6 or more damage. I also added the percentage over here on the right side. So in this example, to deal 3 or more, so on this red bar and above, it's 60%, 69% in this example, and 58% in this example. Usually it's around 58%, right? Hovering around the 60% mark. So that would mean that you actually only have 60% chance of dealing average or better damage, better amount of damage, right? So 40% of the time it will still not happen, and that's pretty frequent. A plan that only has 60% success is not a good plan, right?
Yeah, you'll get the spiky dice up or down, whichever way.
Correct. So what Nick is trying to say in this article is subtract 2 from the average expected result, and you get a range that will happen at least 75% of the time. So using this example on the right over here, so if I expect to deal just the average damage and above, it's only about 58-59% chance. Well, whereas if I lower my expectations by 2, so to deal 6 or more damage is actually 88% chance, and that is a better way to look and expect the damage outcome. So this is what Nick Williams' takeaway is. If my Ogre Horde charges, it should deal at least 6 damage. Then that is a 88% success rate of this statement.
Yeah, you shouldn't get too disappointed if it doesn't go under that. I'm the same. When I look at charging a unit, I'll calculate how much I need. But in my head, I normally will do it roughly about 2 or 3 over or under. Obviously, I want the average or over, but obviously we all know that that's not going to be the case.
Yes. So this is a additional infographic I added on my own. So I got this from the net, from some Math Hammer website. So this is a success rate of 2d6. Okay. So if you did a 12 plus, it's a 2.78% chance. 11 plus is 8.3%, and so on and so forth. So you see on the 7 plus, it's a 58.33%. And in Kings of War, we very often have to roll it twice, because if the unit is inspired, you have to get the result twice. So I added another range of numbers, which is in the underlines. So you basically square this percentage number, because you got to get it twice. So a 58% chance to rout on a 7 suddenly becomes very low, only a 1/3 chance when you have to roll it twice, the 7. So if I am expecting to route a unit on 7 twice, I would not expect to route it. And if I need to roll a 6 twice, I would only expect it to happen 50% of the time.
That's about how I calculate it.
Yeah, so I will usually try my best to get a 5 to route if it's inspired.
then you've got a reasonably good chance, but there's still a decent chance you won't route at that.
Yes, correct. So I did this little example over here, and I'm even surprised by the result myself. So let's say you following Nick's example, that I have an 88% chance of dealing 2 less than the average damage, at least 2 less than the average damage, right?
Yep.
And then even with the 2 less damage than average, I only need a 5 twice to route. But if I add this 2%, I multiply this 2% together, that's only a 61% success rate that it will happen.
Yep.
Right? So it's still a 40% chance of failure. And the moment you deal much less than average, the number skews quite a bit. The moment you do like 3 less than average, the number skews quite badly, because the first percentage will drop and the second percentage will drop as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've all been on the receiving end of it.
Yes. And worst of all, if your plan relies on Bane chance succeeding, most Bane chance are on 2 dice, and that has a 25% chance to fail. So I add this 75% success rate I require for the Bane chance to go off. If I add the percentages together, suddenly my plan has less than half the chance of succeeding.
Yeah.
Which is pretty surprising to myself, even, because
if you're relying on Bane Chant as well to get those numbers, it definitely is going to bring it down for sure.
Yeah, and this scenario over here is quite common actually.
Yeah,
you would hit something, and on average you only need 4 to route, and then you do less than average, and then so on and so forth, right? So one of the key things we would like to advise, or rather give a bit of a tidbit, is think about the consequences if you were to fail.
Yep.
So if you were to get charges that has very little consequences if you did not get the result you want, that is the best. Those are the best charges, and I'll take it without hesitation.
Yeah.
Right. So with that out of the way, let's talk about our lists. So myself, I'm playing Order of the Green Lady, and we're not going to read out the whole list, but one of the things I like about this list is that it's pretty well balanced. It has Alpha Strike, it has a Surge element. I do have some elementals with a Surging Druid. I do like that the Druid's Surge is only 10 points, although it's Surge 4.
Yeah, it's very good.
Most Surges are pretty expensive, and that makes the Surging shenanigan pretty costly. So with the Druid, he's pretty multi-purpose. He has Heal 2, and I could Bane Chant and I could Search, and it's still under 100 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do also have a Horde of Soldiers that gives me that 20 over nerf. Them having Headstrong is pretty handy as well as I do have a Defense 6 element in my Alpha Strike list, so overall pretty well rounded with this Earth Elemental Horde.
Yeah.
One thing I'm low on is the shooting and the individual, so I kind of multi-purpose it onto the Unicorn. So Unicorn, if you just look at him having one row, he's pretty expensive, but he's pretty much a multi-purpose unit. I gave him the Lightning Bolt, and I give him the Blade of Slashing to be a little bit more consistent with being able to deal damage.
Yeah.
I had earlier games where 3 attacks, I wasn't sure that I would ground the enemy or I would deal enough damage because it's not mighty, so if I don't deal damage, it will just walk through me.
Yeah. No, he's fantastic and fantastic value for it. The speed 10 on an individual without flight, and Pathfinder on top of that, so he's one of the best in the game.
Crush 1, Thunderous 1, so it does have Crushing 2 most of the time.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so he fulfills my role of having at least one element of shooting and an individual fighter at the same time, and he's also inspiring, so it's actually a triple role unit, so that's well worth his points. So with that, let's talk about Jeff, your list.
Okay, well, I suppose the biggest change, I've run a few different Trident Realm lists. The biggest change is putting the Placoderms in. More recently, having a few games where the depth horrors were just getting shot off the table, which we all understand that's their weakness. So I tried to put in something that would help that, give them some sort of cover, and I'm very impressed with how they've gone against the KOW units, like I know with the Phalanx and the Defense 6, but seeing it in practice was like a bit of an eye-opener for myself. The biggest problem is the wavering for them. The nerve's not that high, so even 1 point of damage and they can be wavered. But that's why they came into the list. The depth horror regiments are always great value, but that's probably the part that I dropped out to get those in. I was trying out the Gigas as well. Not 100% efficient with them yet. Using the nimble that they've got can be good in games, but I probably haven't got the best out of it as yet. The knuckers everyone loves or hates, whichever end of the field you're on. I'm tending to lean away from them lately and go to a different...
Yeah, that's pretty surprising when you told me about it.
Yeah. But for me, I'm always about trying to stop something else. Like you've got a lot of flyers in your list, so that was going to be their main job, was trying to keep them contained. Right. But I didn't do a brilliant job of that. So I've looked at other ways since to try and contain flyers. And losing the knuckers was one of the first things I did. So, yes, it would surprise most people. The envoys, I was trying that Fury for the placoderms. So if he's within 6 inches of one of the infantry units, he gives them Fury. Didn't really work, mainly because trying to position the placoderm troops need to be in all different places and he can't be everywhere at once. So spending the money on that, or the points on that, wasn't a great investment, so it's probably something I wouldn't do again. The one with the loot, that's different. I have sort of said before, Bane Chance, not the be-all and end-all, but if it's on something that's got a dual use, like an envoy who's given me inspiring to the Gigas because my Eternals only inspire my depth horrors, I needed that extra inspiring for the placoderms and the Gigas, so giving him the loot was a good combination, and it did work well. The Eternals are, as I said, always great value. The high nerve, and I think they're a little bit underpriced themselves.
Yeah, I do notice in most of your lists, you pick a few units that you really like and you bring lots of them. So you have lots of placoderms, depth horrors, and depth horror Eternals.
Yeah, it's the same with the list that I put on the table. The models that I'm using, I'll usually have 3 or 4 units of them, so I don't end up with a whole lot of different units. And some people dislike that. They don't like seeing lots of the one thing. But
right. Straight away, this is my first game against Trident Realm in 3rd edition. I did kept the rule book next to me handy at all times to keep reading, because this is against Jeff, and this is round 2, but it felt like the finals already.
Me too.
There was a lot of mental preparation involved, and I was pretty much afraid of the placoderms because I do have a lot of cavalry, flying, thunderers, which is all nullified by the phalanx. If I were to make a 2,000 point list, I would have dropped the Earth Elementals and 1 Pegasus, which is exactly 300 points.
Yep.
I'm still trying to get Earth Elementals to work. They are defense 6, but I've fielded them in about 4 or 5 games with my Order of the Green Lady list so far, and the problem with them is that speed 5, they have a lot of trouble keeping up with the army. I really love Water Elementals. On the other hand, speed 7 is very, very good because most things in the game are speed 5 or 6 if you're talking about foot soldiers and elves and so on and so forth. So the Water Elementals kind of outtread all of them, which is great. It outtreads like ogres as well.
Yep.
So let's move on to our deployment. We did place the objectives. I can't remember which one.
Who put what where?
Yeah, I do remember putting the one on the field. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think I put this one over here. I forgot which was my last placement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the amount of Pathfinder you've got.
Yeah, with my amount of Pathfinder, I know that throwing this here would be very good for me, especially if I have my men-at-arms there to just keep taking hindered charges with the field and fence over there. Should be able to last a while. And of course the fence is on this side, so I put the Water Elemental Regiment because they have Strider, while the Earth Elementals on the other side. One of the earlier strategy I had, I think Jeff won the role for deployment. You chose the bottom.
Right, and the roll for sides, I mean. Yep.
Yeah, for the roll off for sides.
Yep.
Took the top, which is fine by me. And one of the first things I wanted to do in my deployment was I was thinking of going for the right side, because if you notice, this is pretty much the center of the board, and then there's 3 on the right, or there's only 2 on the left. And with all that terrain, I thought with my Pathfinder I would be able to claim the right side pretty handily. So I was trying to bait him on the left. So if you notice the deployment order, I started off with Pegasus and the Beast on the left side. Then the Man-at-Arms went in the middle because it was an obvious drop. So one of the things you want to do about deployment is also drop the obvious ones as well. Drop the obvious ones first. Yeah, and then I placed, right after that, I continued to place more on the left with the Water Elemental Regiment, because it's 130 points, so it's not pretty much committing too much. And I placed a big threat on the left, hoping that that would sway you towards more deployment on the left, because it's a very strong unit, and I placed them there because they can fly, so I could redeploy them out of the way once the game started.
Yeah.
But what happened was, as the deployment progressed on, we are both pretty heavily deployed on the right side. So halfway through, I think everybody knew that the fight was more on the right.
Yeah, we're both fainting to the left, but really both going to go for the right.
Correct. So Jeff also started with the first drop here, second drop here, third drop in the middle, fourth drop on the left.
Yes.
And then fifth drop still towards the left. Then everything started to go on the right.
Yeah.
And then,
I have more deployments than you, so...
Yeah, and you have more deployments. So I had 13, and if you notice the drops without numbers, those are after my last drop has went down.
Yeah.
And at this point, I started to realize, oh dear, I don't think I can punch through all that meat on the right, especially with that Gigas Horde. And so, on my final drop, I dropped the Redemption Knights on the left instead, drop number 13 over here. The way I have been deploying, usually the Redemption Knights will go on the right, because I have exactly 3 sources of Inspiring, and that would be my Druid in the center, usually somewhat in the center, the Unicorn on one side, and usually the Redemption on the other side, usually.
Yep.
Right, so as the deployment went on, I decided to change my plans. I noticed that he's pretty sparse on the left, although he still had 1 Depth Horror unit and a Knuckler, and I think a character to go. And 1 Placoderm unit to go. I decided to push more on the left.
Yeah, I had to keep my Placoderms, at least 1 or 2 units ready for wherever your cav went. So.
Right. So when the deployment has fully finished, my plan has changed to go for this 3 in the middle, and hopefully get this 4th one that's in the middle of his forest.
Yep. Yeah, well, mine was to control that right side and then swing in to the center.
Right.
And delay him on the left, but it's hard delaying flyers, but I thought I had the nimble characters and the Knucker to at least slow you down over there.
Yeah, Depth Horror Eternals are great value, so...
Yes. They're hard to chew through. Then you usually don't go through them in a go, so...
That dash 16 and good. Snare.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look... I did record that you won the initiative roll and let me go first.
Yeah, so, which is normal for me.
Which is normal, yeah. Yep. So for me, I don't mind going first as well, because I get to position all my stuff. As an Alpha Strike player, I like to say that I'm setting the question, right?
Yeah.
I ask you a question, could you handle this? So I like to set the question, whereas if I go second, I usually get asked the question, what am I going to do?
Yeah, well, I like to set traps.
Right, so I have deployed, I've moved forward this way. So one of the few things I was a bit concerned with, firstly, my Forsaken Knights did not deploy all the way on the left corner, because my initial plan was to swerve to the right.
Yep.
So on the left, I only had this Pegasus guarding it. So because of this building in the left side, I decided to just concentrate my Forsaken Knights just to face whatever on the other side of the building, so that I could also threaten more towards the center. But I do know that this Depth Horror Eternal on the left side would come up and sort of threaten this. So I did place the Pegasus plus the Beast of Nature to guard against it, and to some extent the Unicorn as well.
Yeah.
And the Unicorn did a Lightning Bolt, which dealt 1 damage to the Knuckle, because the Knuckle has the lower nerf, so I decided to try to go for it.
Yeah, also the stealth doesn't work against your Lightning Bolt, so it's the best target.
Yeah.
Best one to get at him.
On the right side, the one thing that I thought that I could have done better was, if you notice that this Water Elemental Regiment was out of the forest, so he couldn't see anything and he couldn't charge anything the next round, so that was pretty much a waste. And my Druid could have surged, and it only needed 2 to get into the forest, which is the average dice. Yep. What I instead elected to do was to run the Druid, because I was concerned of getting the Inspiring Bubble towards the right side, so I decided to run instead. But looking at this battle report now, I think surging in would have been the better idea. That would also mean the Pegasus need to come forward. The threat line, if you notice, the tape measure I put down was here, so there is space for my Pegasus to move forward and stay out of threat range.
Yeah.
Knuckle also, I did not put the tape measure for that, but it was also somewhere around the same line as...
It looks about 6 inches back from the front line anyway.
So let's see how did Jeff respond.
Yeah, well, as you said, because you weren't up in the forest, other than the flyer, I've pretty much just marched everything up. You've got the speed, so I've got to get into a position where I'm going to take the charges, so to speak, but have good counters once you do it. So you're not being in the woods. I knew there was always the threat of the water elementals coming up in the forest, pivoting and then being surged into a flank. So that was a concern on that side. And I moved the Knucker back just to help contain the flyers if they come over. I needed something there.
The Placoderms didn't move as far as it did because of the threat of the flank surge from the water elementals. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you need enough backup. If I've just got one unit to come in afterwards, mightn't be enough, and everything's going to be hindered over there. So it's still going to be difficult to deal with. To the centre, I've just moved up. I've just got to get in a position. Earth elementals were definitely a problem getting through the defence 6, but with the Bane Chan and I thought the horrors and that, I've got enough there to actually do enough damage to really hurt them. So
yeah.
My main concern was on the left. That's where I was sparse. So I've thrown the Depth Horror Eternals out there, trying to bait in a charge. What I didn't notice was that I'd actually given the flank to the Pegasus, so right. that was a mistake. I've probably moved up in a position, checked the flank for it. It's been fine, and then pivoted to face something else and forgotten about the flank. That's usually how it happens.
Yeah, it happened to me quite a lot of times.
Yeah.
Do check.
And I didn't expect, because I thought I could take the peg and the
right, because you face it this way, and I did draw the arc here, so that red box with the line is if my beast were to charge into it.
Yeah.
And then you can see from the line that the Knuckle will be in the flank, and the tape measure shows that it's in. So this was the trap that Jeff set up. Yeah, but he could well have set this trap while facing the Pegasus in the front still.
Exactly. I didn't have to come up as far. Right. And then again with the other Eternal, if one of the flying unit went in, I didn't think that could break the Eternal. And then I could flank them with the Depth Horrors, but I was still in a bit of a standoff. I needed the Placoderms to get up and get in the face of the Cav, because as long as they had free reign, they were probably the biggest hitter of anything over there.
Right.
Your Horde in the centre wasn't concerned with as far as the threat to doing damage to me, because it was going to be as hindered as much as I was. So if we got into a grind, I thought I could take them down. But, so I was feeling good on the right, but not so good on the left.
Right. The main trap was on the left side, and if you look at the tape measure for the Beast of Nature on the right, it wasn't in range to charge anything in the center. The Pegasus was in range to charge one of them in the flank, but that would not be enough damage to deal significant enough damage.
Yeah, I'd be happy for you to charge it in.
Right, so the only flank I got was the Beast of Nature on this unit of Placoderms, which wasn't good odds anyway to route it. And even if I did, my Beast of Nature would definitely die to the Gigas and the Death Horrors following up with that.
Definitely be happy with that exchange.
So looking at this, there was no good targets for my Beast of Nature at all. Nothing else is worth charging. Even the Death Horror regiment, I didn't have the enough odds of success to take it out.
No.
So instead, I chose to back up. And let's talk about the left side as well. So Jeff did set this trap. So I knew that, okay, if I charge this Pegasus in the flank, let me take out the pen, and then I charge this beast in the front, and then that would give the Knucker the flank. But I saw that I could charge the Unicorn in as well. So that would happen to have the Unicorn guarding the flank of the Beast of Nature, and so he would have to chew through the Unicorn before it could get the flank of the Beast.
Yeah,
because they are both 50 mm, which is very unlikely. So the numbers here indicate the odds. He'll do a 2.2 wounds on with the Death Horror and 2.67 with the Knucker, so that would be an average of about 5 wounds, and that would need 9 twice to route the Unicorn. So yes, very unlikely. So that was why I decided to take it in. So this was calculating the consequences if I fail, and so I thought that it was a pretty safe charge from there. So I went for it.
No, it was a good move.
I'm going to bring out some numbers. This shows the odds. So we'll talk from left to right. So this numbers shows the average damage. So once again, the average, right? So 7A stands for 7 attacks, 3.5 H for hits, and 3.4 wounds with that vicious.
Vicious, yeah.
Yeah, and the Pegasus. So the numbers, I'm not going to read all of them out, but this is what I mean when I type it like this. So the total would be about 7.74 wounds. So that means about 8, and that means I need about 8 twice to route it. So that was in my favor. So I should be expecting 6 twice if I want to have a good 50% chance of route it. So I got an 8 twice, so that's a 2 above average. So I tabulated a table on the right side for dice going my way or not my way. Alright, so the green numbers are things going in my way, in my favor, and red numbers are things not going in my favor. Additionally, I put an underline, an underscore underneath to signify that it was a pretty critical nerf roll.
Yeah, it was very disappointing.
With that out of the way, my 3 guys are able to have free reign to threaten the whole left side.
Yeah, I can't even counter in there because now wherever I go in, I'm going to get flanked and I'm not going to possibly break the Pegasus, but it's just not worth it. The payoff for it's just not worth it.
Right, so I repositioned everything to be able to guard each other, so no matter who the Knucker charged, I would have a counter solution for that. I think the Unicorn couldn't be charged because of the flank is being blocked by the...
Probably building. Right, yeah. So, possibly could have been charged, but it wouldn't have achieved anything for me anyway.
More towards the center. So talking about this Order of the Redemption, it started deployed behind the water elementals because I was afraid of things, Knuckers or whatnot, charging it and stripping off its Thunderous. But as everything went down and the Knucker being so far away, so I started this plan of shifting the Redemption Knights out. It started in the previous turn and it shuffled a little bit more this turn. So this was the previous turn, it shuffled. What I made, which was probably a mistake on hindsight, is that I shifted it too far forwards. I should have kept it back a little bit. I think I shifted it to be within 3 inches of the objective, and I think I don't need to stand on the objective so early in the game.
At the stage.
Yeah, I could have just stayed back a little bit more, and Jeff saw that and sort of capitalized on it. More towards the right side, my Pegasus that was here, let me just switch back to the laser pointer. My Pegasus that was in the forest started this cross-country plan of flying, making its way slowly to the left side. That was my plan. So
right.
It turned sideways, flew 10, and turned to face the front. So it threatened more of the center right now.
Yeah.
The Beast of Nature couldn't do anything as cool, so it sort of backed up. The water elementals finally went into the forest. So let's see, what did Jeff do?
Yeah, well, the way you position the water elementals and backing up the beast, the first thing of note, obviously, was that if I did charge in with the Depth Horror Eternal, I copped the beast in the flank, and I didn't want to throw it away that easy, because a good chance that would go down to that, even if I backed it up with other things. So I thought I'll take a little bit more time. I outnumbered you quite heavily on that side, so I thought I've got the time. The biggest threat was the water elementals coming in from the flank. I didn't mind losing the placoderm unit, especially the one where your indicator is there near the objective marker, because I thought, well, I'm going to hit you twice as hard once you take them out. So I wasn't too concerned about that. And I just continued straight up the centre. I wanted to get out of the woods as quickly as possible, because I've sent the placoderms up towards your other cavalry, slightly to the left. That's giving me some protection for my depth horrors, but I could only go so far because I didn't need the water elementals coming into my flank either. So,
which one are you talking about? Is it this one in front of?
Yes, I've moved that up in front of your cav, so to shut them down. That's pretty much stopped them from charging anything. If you do charge, well, then I've got charges off the hill. I've got flanks. I've got etc. coming in. They're very hard for a cavalry unit to budge. Obviously, it was giving you the flank with the water elementals as well, but I didn't figure they'd do that much damage. So I thought I'd have a good chance of holding. And I've put the Bastion onto the depth horrors there to just give them that little bit extra to hold. There's still a chance that I could have lost them there, but I thought it was worth it. If you did commit to it, well, then I'm going to hit you fairly hard anyway, so I thought that was okay. I moved everything up. I abandoned the plan of keeping the Nucker back because he was outnumbered 3-1.
So they all hid behind the building, basically.
So I thought I'm going to do a big rush on your units, try and force you to charge one, and then it would take another turn or two for you to get round to support them. And hopefully by then I've broken the units and I can turn around. That was my plan on the left.
Right. And it was a pretty good plan. Moving my Redemption Knights too far forward came to beat me back in the end. Because what I like to do with my speed, my units with superior speed, is to threaten the opponent. And when the opponent sets up a trap or sets up a formation that asks me to charge, and it's not favorable, if I don't want to charge, one of the things I like to do is to back up. But being too far forward, I couldn't back up enough to be out of charge range. Yeah, so that was the little fumble over here. So there are one of more fumbles to come, and the next turn was where most of my fumbles came along. So let's just talk from left to right first. So my three musketeers on the left positioned to face the entire side and back of your left army. The Redemption Knights backed up. But even when it backed up so much, it could still be triple charged, mainly by this unit here. The Knucker. They're all in the front though. And this placoderm. Because the center unit being 120 mils, it's versus 125 from the cavalry. So you could triple charge the unit. And so one lucky thing that happened was that my water elementals into the flank did waver it. I think I rolled 1 above average to waver it. So
you needed a 10 to waver them, because they're normally 11, 13, and they're a 12.
Right. So, but my average damage should have been 3, so I needed 3 to 12. I needed a 9, right? Okay, so that should have been a 2. I forgot to count the Bastion in this one. I missed the Bastion in this one. So that's why there's underlined, because this was a big deal breaker here. So the center and the left side, this is where, let me explain this whole fumble over here. Firstly, I had planned to surge this earth elementals into the flank while the water elementals hit the front. So with that, I thought that, okay, if this unit of foot soldiers block this whole center part, it will protect the earth elementals.
Yeah, from getting flanked.
Right. And the Earth Elementals was hopefully able to block a flank charge from the Knucker.
Yep.
Seeing that my Pegasus could fit in there, I think it couldn't have blocked anyway, but I'm not too sure about that. I think my Earth Elementals might have reformed in a way that leaves no space for the Knucker. So I had to maneuver this Pegasus to sandwich in between. So it prevents foot soldiers from sliding all the way to the center. Because if it slide all the way, it will block the Earth Elementals from flanking. So after performing all these moves, I was pretty satisfied on this part, and then I charged the Water Elementals in without realizing that it blocks the surge.
Yeah. So they slid across, and then you're off doing the other things, and I thought, he hasn't even noticed it.
Right. Did I do the Water Elementals first? I didn't even remember.
You were doing it in different parts, like setting up the surge and, okay, what if this happens and what if that happens?
Right.
And you did all the things and go, right, I've got what I want to do, set it all up, and then I thought he's forgotten when he slides across, he's going to block them up, and then you've charged in, slid across, and didn't even notice it.
I saw the blockage on the left. I didn't see the blockage on the right. Oh my god!
No, it was all to do with the slide. That was all, and so easy to miss.
And in the end of the day, I didn't even need to do this. Right, the best I do is I kill off a unit of 105 point items. Whereas if I kept back, I would have been, especially the foot soldiers, it would have been getting hindered charges the whole game from the opponent, as well as the two elementals that they could survive much longer. Remember, my plan was to win this 4.
Yeah.
So it was a totally unnecessary move because I thought after doing the full planning, you would have been safe, but obviously everything crumbled at this point. Pretty painful about that. So let's talk about the rest. This cavalry on the right side decided to stay put here to threaten that 3 points on the objective.
Yep.
While the beast that was just in front of it, once again, nothing good to charge at. Jeff protected, even this Knucker, the flank was protected with the Gigas. Jeff also placed the Gigas exactly where it was so that when I moved 20, it would still be on the Gigas. And so I couldn't turn to face. So instead, I turned first and landed here, just behind the Gigas.
Yeah.
So I did a slight pivot this way before moving 20.
Yeah, still not ideal for me to have anything in my back, but at least it gives me another turn before you can turn and threaten. So it's keeping it out of the game. Correct. At least another turn.
So bad news on the dice roll is that my Water Elementals dealt 1 below average. So that's the 1 over here. While the Foot Soldiers dealt 1.3 above average. You can see the numbers all over here. So this should be a 9 to waver. So this should have been the 2. Okay, so let's move on. Jeff's response. So we'll go from left to right.
Okay, maybe. Over on the left, well, I did what I said. Obviously, the waiver on the placoderms hurt, so I couldn't get that triple in. But I figured I still got a decent chance of breaking the Knights with the Depth Horrors coming down off the hill. Getting that bonus. I was really regretting that I didn't have my Bane Chant anywhere near there because that would have been nice, but you can't have them everywhere. Right. And the Knucker going in. But and then I had to turn the Depth Horrors around. The problem is once you've got in the rear position, which you have with your flyers, etc., everything's threatened. If I don't break things, I'm in trouble. So I've tried to move the Depth Horror Eternal across, protect the rear of him, but still threaten anything that came in to support or kill off the Knucker or the Depth Horrors. So I just did the best I could there. It wasn't ideal, but I was really hoping, not relying, but hoping that I could take those Knights out, because if I could take them out, I could then turn my army around and I'd be pretty safe in trying to hold, at least be on an even keel over there. Whereas on the right, I felt pretty much in control. I think I've hit the horde in the flank with the Knucker and
the middle.
Put the Depth Horrors have countercharged in the front.
Right.
And then double charged the Water Elementals.
With a Bane Bane Charm.
Yeah, with the Bane Charm as well. So they had a good shot at them. And then over on the right, start into the cavalry. So I figure once I get the first two in, then I'll manoeuvre and get round your flank. If you counter the Depth Horror Eternal, I'll flank you with the other one. If you go into them, flank the other way. It's the usual way. If you can get 2 units into one of theirs, you don't have to break them on the first turn. You can just get it in a position where you can start wearing them down, and you've got no support there, so good chance that I'm going to start flanking you in that position. And I move the Gigas up. If I don't break the water elementals, I can either go up and go for the cav, or I can go in for the water elementals.
Right, so you have just 2.
Yeah, and I've pretty much ignored the flyer altogether.
Yeah, the Beast of Nature in the rear.
Yeah.
Because you do have 1 turn to react.
That's right. Yeah.
So let's look at the dice result. This charge over here, you should have dealt an average of about 11 wounds. So you have dealt 2 below average. On the average dice result, you will need 6 to rout and 4 to waver. I think you rolled pretty low on the nerf. The waver wasn't even there. Yeah. I do have Headstrong, so I do have a 2/3 chance to shake off the waivers.
Yes.
Right. In the center, it was pretty average damage. You need a 7 once to rout the soldiers because there was no inspiring nearby.
Yeah, that always hurts.
Yeah, if it was a 7 twice, that would been able to expect them to survive a little bit better. On the water elementals, you should have dealt an average of 10 damage. You dealt above average damage. And on average, you only need 4 twice to rout, but you didn't rout it.
No,
so above average damage, but less than ideal nerf roll.
Yeah, I rolled the double 1 on that one, I remember. Not that I needed still above that, but yeah.
And this one, you just dealt just 1 point below average, so that's...
Yeah, that to me wasn't a concern. It was a matter of setting it up and getting ready to grind that unit down.
Yeah. So this 3.23 here is the odds of the Redemption Knights.
Yeah.
So this was pretty critical. If you would...
That was the most critical of that turn. That was... the other ones weren't so much of a worry because I figured even if I don't beat them now, I'll beat them later.
Right. So,
but that one, I really needed it over on the left because your support was coming. And if I didn't deal with you quickly, I was in trouble.
Yeah, and one bad move for my Forsaken Knights was it was out of charge range of whatever charge you couldn't see whatever charge the Redemption Knights. So that was a very bad positioning from me. I should have backed it up a little bit more. I kept it a bit further forward so that I thought I could threaten further forward.
Yeah.
So on hindsight, that was pretty...
Well, in the other way, if you hadn't have wavered the placoderms and I got the triple charge in and you'd held, you then would have got the flank on the knucker because I would have been extended further out. So, neither of us expected the placoderms to waver. So your move probably wasn't that bad in reflection.
So let's see what I did. So the Forsaken Knights, without being able to charge whatever's fighting the Redemption Knights, and he couldn't charge the flank of the placoderms even because it was blocked. So I charged the Depth Horrors instead. Thought I would start the grind.
Yep.
Yeah, so for the Knucker, I flanked with the Beast of Nature and the Unicorn. And that's why I love the Unicorn. When I just need a little bit of extra punch, I just charge the Unicorn in as well.
Yeah, even the Pegasus were pains in the butt.
Right. So my Pegasus has made its maiden voyage all the way from the right. It charged the flank of this Depth Horrors with the counter charge from the Redemption Knights. The Water Elementals went to the Placoderms again and got a waiver again.
Yep.
So with the Water Elementals still alive, I double charged the Depth Horrors, dealing 7, but still not killing it.
Yep.
And so, like what Jeff said, with this cavalry on the right, if I were to charge either one of them, I'll be dead next turn because of the flank. So instead, I decided to keep pulling back this whole game. Because if I pull back enough, after it kills me, it'll be very far from the rest of the combat. and he might be further from. He needs to make his way back to the objective as well.
Yeah, no, it was a good move because there's delaying, and I couldn't see you winning over there, so that's a good move.
So let's look at the dice odds. I only needed a 3 to route the knuckle on average, so that was average, yeah. So I thought I'll start the grind here. Good thing about this part is because of the Depth Horror Eternal needing to protect his rear, standing in front of the building, he couldn't buddy up and protect the Depth Horror unit.
Yeah.
So I should have dealt 7.5, but on average, I dealt below average. Not too bad, because I think I'll still kill it the next round, just that I needed the Pegasus in to be just a bit sure. For the Depth Horror unit over here, I should, on average, just needed a 7 to route it, and I did not get it. But what did go well for me was I regenerated 5 wounds. So from 9 I dropped to 4. I should have regenerated 3. So I did indicate here that I regenerate 2 more than normal.
Yeah.
And that sort of kept my Redemption Knights alive the whole game. Because if it was at 6, the counter charge from the Depth Horrors might kill it still. Right? So good thing was the Bane Chan was at the other side of the board over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else are we looking at? So I did deal above average damage on this Placoderm and wavered it again.
Yeah.
For this, I dealt quite a lot of damage with Brutal. I dealt 1 above damage, and with Brutal, on average damage, I need 7 twice, so that was a 34% chance. I did deal above average damage, but I did not get that 6.
Yeah, because of the reroll there.
Yeah, with the reroll. Yeah, the Beast of Nature started to turn around and started to threaten everything already.
Yeah, now he's a problem. Yeah.
So I missed the end of this fourth turn shot. So I did remember what happened, so I will just kind of draw it out. Depth Horror Eternal went in the front. This Depth Horror's countercharged. This countercharged. This could have countercharged because of the aura here of Fury. If he went close enough, he could countercharge. He might have. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, I think it might have been out of range. I think I had the choice of putting Bastion on or getting close enough to give the Fury, and I figured average you're only going to get like 1 wound on them, so I should be fine there. And the Depth Horrors were more important to me to keep them alive.
So over in the center, the Knuckle and the Depth Horror charged the flank of the Earth Elementals.
Yeah.
I think this unit charged in as well, while the Placoderm and the Gigas charged the Water Elementals.
Yeah, that's what I would have done, just looking at it.
Right, so this dealt above average damage, the Forsaken Knights. The Death Horror Eternal on the Beast dealt slightly under. The Death Horrors against the Redemption Knights, because I have healed up so much, it would have brought the average to needing 7 twice to rout me.
Yeah.
And because I healed 2 regen above, if not, it would have been a 5 twice, right? So that was a pretty huge with that extra regen.
Yeah.
The 2 Elemental Hordes just died as expected. Over here, on my Green Knights over here, your Depth Horror Eternal started to turn around, I guess because it is nimble, it's a little bit more maneuverable. You decide to move him to assist more towards the center.
Yeah, and if I didn't break the any of the elementals, I'd then be in the rear of you. So it was and I figured I've got those knights contained now. So
all right,
and I've got plenty of time to get units over to get the objective.
You did deal below average damage here, but it didn't matter as much.
No, it doesn't really matter in that position. There's ones where you go over or under, but some are critical and some aren't.
Right, so I'll just put all the things out over here. So moving from left to right, I'll use the laser. So the Forsaken Knights, with the assistance of the Pegasus in the flank, did take out the Depth Horrors at the hill. I think your Placoderm's countercharge, because now you're in that Fury Aura range, but didn't do damage.
That's right, you actually
I think you dealt some damage and I regenerated it.
Yeah, I didn't think of it when I was first doing the Bastion, but moving the Envoy first to get it in range to then get the Fury to move the other unit. That was the thing where I'd sort of...
Yeah, Mobile Fury Aura is pretty useful because you can move it in. You don't have to position the turn before.
No, and that's what I didn't realise straight away.
Yeah, so for the Death Horror, that only dealt 1 damage to the Beast. So I got that that Pegasus that started the game all the way on the right side. Did another flank from the Death Horrors, now flanking into the Death Horror Eternal.
I think he did the most damage again.
The average would not kill it, so no surprises there. No. The Redemption Knights did kill off the Death Horrors finally.
But definitely thinning out on that side. You're taking good control of that left side now.
The Water Elementals continue to do damage to... I think it fluffed, so no damage dealt this round.
Yep.
One thing I did was that there was a heavily injured unit of Death Horrors where my 2 Elementals charged in. Yeah, that was the one that my 2 Elementals charged. So this little unicorn here could now do a lightning bolt all the way over across. It is in cover, but I just needed that 1 wound to deal that to do that nerf test, and I needed a 5 twice.
Yeah, definitely within the realms of getting it. I think they were sitting on 11 wounds before you shot them. So
because I didn't have the previous turn screenshot, I didn't know how much damage my Redemption Knights actually took. So I assumed the average. I would have been on 10.
Yeah.
And so with the regen, and there's a heal 2 from the Druid here, I did regen healed back above average again, 2.7 over here.
Yeah.
So now it's almost fresh.
Yeah, it's very frustrating trying to kill them.
That's the power of the Redemption Knights, or rather regenerating units. Once you get 2 rounds of regen, it kind of adds up. When you only
that's
one round,
yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't really matter.
I've known the same with the Molochs. If they can survive, then they'll regen just about everything back by the time they get something else.
So the beast that made his whole flanking maneuver finally charged at this unit, dealing average damage. So it was the only good target to charge, so I charged it. The Knucker, once again, the flank was protected, so I couldn't charge it.
Yeah.
But what did work for me that was in my favor, that because of the beast being in the back, it caused these Gigas to face the back, the Placoderm to face the back, the Placoderm over here to face the other side, and this unit that died to Lightning Bolt was facing the back as well.
Yeah. And
pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units was turned around to face it. So it sort of delayed your trip to the left.
Yeah, and they're nearly all stuck in terrain as well. So trying to get back to the centre is really, really difficult in that position.
I did have a circle here just to remind everybody that this unit is still sitting on that objective. Once again, my knights continued its effort of pulling backwards. And so, bottom of 5. Let's look at what happened. Your Death Horror Eternals charged the Pegasus because you decided that if you get a lucky kill, then there's one less
flyer to get objectives, is the way I was looking at it, because I figured I was going to die next round either way for him, so at least have a go at trying to take something out.
Right. You did get a waiver, which was an expected result. Knucker charged at the Redemption Knights through the fence. I forgot to take into account the fence. You did roll pretty high to get that waiver.
Yes, I would have rolled high for that.
But on the other hand, also because I did heal back above average number of wounds, getting a waiver wasn't too...
Well, the big thing was you had Headstrong and you passed it, so it made no difference.
Right. One of the best things I like about Knights is the Headstrong. I like units with Headstrong generally. Fury is even better in my opinion, but Headstrong.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in this edition where shooting is much more toned down. You did the average amount of damage here to waiver the Beast of Nature with the assistance of Bane Chant, of course. Yep. And your rest of your forces started to shuffle forward.
Everything pretty much just turned around.
Over on the right side, you decided that 1 unit is enough to finish me off, or at least keep me away from the objective while you pull your Depth Horrors back to hold that objective.
Yeah, I think we were getting up in the turns then. I figured if both of them chased it, I'd have them out of range of the objective. So I thought the one can hold them pretty well while the other one gets the objective.
Right. One thing I'd like to take note of here before I move into the next slide is that I should have done this in the next turn, which I'll explain why later. My unicorn was still able to see the depth horrors in the rear to charge it. That was important because I'm going to show you the next slide. So I did have to hold this objective in the field. So what I did instead to hold it was to pull my water elementals back 3.5 inches to be within range of that objective.
Yeah, that was a good move.
Jeff's hero was behind the placoderm, which meant that I could charge it and overrun into the rear of the placoderms, which was what my Forsaken Knights pretty much did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did have to provision for the off chance that both the Depth Horror Eternal survived, which was worth 1 unit strength, and this placoderm survived, which was worth 1 unit strength. So I charged the Forsaken Knights in to hold that in the center for sure for 3 unit strength. Redemption Knights surprisingly killed off the Knucker in 1 go, so that was above average result.
Yeah, I was shocked with that one.
Okay, so I also positioned for the in case there's a turn 7. So right now it is a draw. Let me erase that to show you. There's one objective over here, and holding the third one, while Jeff is holding this one in the forest, this one, and this one. So I was positioning myself for possible turn 7 where I will try to threaten this one over here.
I thought you'd send them in on that turn. Obviously, they weren't going to do much damage, but I wasn't in a great position to do much about it.
Right. Yeah, that was my concern, and I think that this what do you call this? The Gigas might be in range to charge afterwards.
Yeah.
Which was what I do not want.
Possibly. It looks like they're only a 10-inch charge, and I think I had to kill the beast first anyway, so I don't think I would have been able to counter it.
Yeah, so I think that was a questionable choice for me because I was just a little bit afraid that if rolls go wrong, I double 1 on the Naiad Envoy or double 1 on the placoderm.
Yep.
Plus not killing the what's this called, the Depth Horror Eternal. So I was playing it a little bit safe.
Yeah. Well, nothing's guaranteed, as you know.
So on the other hand, what I didn't notice, which was why I should have charged the Unicorn in, instead I did lightning bolt, dealing 3 but not routing it, was that if you have moved your Depth Horrors back 3 inches, you would have been in range of that objective. So your unit strength will be 3 against my 2.
Yes.
So what Jeff forgot was that the Water Elemental Regiment was worth unit strength of 2.
Yeah, well, my placoderm for 1, and for some silly reason
in for 1 unit strength, and he thought he would have contested it and win.
Yeah, I thought I'll contest that and hold the other 3, and if we don't get a turn 7, I'll win.
Right.
And that's why I turned the other ones round ready for on a turn 7. I can do some counters to anything that come in. Yeah, miscalculation on my part on the unit strength. I think it's just the placoderms being the larger infantry. So that's my excuse anyway.
So we did not roll a turn 7. So straight after the roll, we were already like talking, oh, this was a very tough game, so on and so forth. And then in my mind, we drew, and then in Jeff's mind, he won. Then after that, when we were starting to sort things out, it's like, didn't I win? It's like,
I said I won, didn't I?
I was like, hang on, how many unit strengths is your placoderm? Because mine is 2.
Yeah, no, I give myself a slap on the head. Oh, jeez. I forgot all about that.
So that's the end of the game. If you look at the tally on the right side, the dice were definitely more in my favor for this game. Thankfully, that sort of made up for that huge error of the search error in the center.
Yeah. If it went to a turn 7, I believe you will win, because
it would have
been very tough. There's a few
a draw or a win for me because because with my knights coming onto this objective, and I think more of my flyers starting to threaten everywhere, I guess it's probably either a draw with a chance of winning for me. It depends on how the battle goes, but your Gigas can definitely get into combat.
Yeah. The other big thing is that when you've got things like Pegasus and the beasts of nature that can fly into a forest, and you've got all these ones sitting in difficult ground, it's a massive bonus to have something like that. So I not only have to position to stop the charges, but trying to stop you contesting, which is all you would have needed to do, is say one Pegasus fly down to that bottom token,
right,
contest that, and that wins you the game because you've got your other ones held. You contest there, and that's it. Bang! I can't do much about it.
You so it all depends on what happens with the Gigas, right? The Gigas will probably have to come in for here.
Yeah, and then I would send the depth horror. I kept that within range to go down and get that one near the Gigas, so it could get that one. I've got the one on the right, so yes, they would have to come down that way. And being nimble, I might be able to get within 3. I'm not. Looks like I could, but yeah, still, at best, I get a draw.
Right.
I can't see it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that misjudgment on the depth horror was the key. So I was lucky once more with that miscalculation from Jeff, and yeah, the tally of the dice, and I also did a little statistic here, was the total number of nerf rolls with each roll. So being an Alpha Strike army, I do think that yes, I do expect to have more offense and more chances of rolling nerf tests.
Yeah, well, you're usually getting the attack, and that pretty much shows the number of times that the aggressive person breaks the other one without the counter. So you getting 4 more nerve rolls than me is pretty much saying you've done those charges, but there hasn't been a counter available, and that's where the difference in the nerve rolls will be. And that's the advantage of an Alpha Strike army, but obviously the armies that aren't Alpha Strike usually have the higher nerve or better toughness or whatever to make up for it. So
right. Okay, let's talk about learning points.
Yep.
First, we have to be agile to change from our initial plans. So I did plan to get the right side objectives, but I switched gears pretty much since deployment to go for the left instead. That was my overarching plan, so I did not have to do that search trick. So I just stick to it because it's not necessary, and even if it worked, any bad dice roll might swerve things out of my favor. I think
it's hard not to, when you've got Surge in the list, it's hard to feel like you have to do it.
It's like, I got a flank Surge, I gotta do it.
Yes. How can you not do it?
So nimble flyers, I do have your nimble flyers positioned to fly behind the enemy lines, but Jeff did keep that knuckle back on the right side, anticipating it. It's only when he knew that I couldn't fly and turn that he moved his knuckle forward. Yeah. So I needed 1 extra turn for the beast to fly 20 inch facing the back, and then to the next turn to turn around, which he had time to react, but that also caused half his army to turn around and slow his army down. Yeah,
so it's hard to say whether it was better or not, me moving up to position to take out your units or stay back and try and keep him contained. Very hard to say.
So main key, just keep delaying wherever you don't need to win the battle. Yep. So that's talking about my cavalry on the top right that just kept backing up. And if I was a little bit more disciplined with my elementals and my men-at-arms, I would have survived longer, especially when the point of contention was that objective in that field that my men-at-arms was tasked to protect.
Yeah, and if you destroyed my left side and had time to back up the men-at-arms, then it would have been really difficult for me to take them out.
Yeah, this does have unit strength of 4 as well.
Yeah, because I'd need a few turns to grind through them. Normally.
Yeah, so this is a pretty basic little tip, which is to always be ready to claim objectives near the end of the game. You have to figure out who goes where, who takes what.
Yeah, I think we were both doing that, so we're both very aware of where things were and what we needed to do.
And that one small little thing that got us the draw, that large infantry regiments do remember it's 2 unit strength. Small little unit. Swarms are worth 1, troops of infantry are worth 1, but a large infantry regiment is worth 2.
Yeah, even with that, it still wasn't a bad thing to do the charge, because I still had that slight chance of breaking your unit and then win the game that way. So, but yes, definitely a miscalculation as to thinking that I'd won the game where it was actually a draw.
Right. So, thank you very much, Jeff, for doing this battle report with me, and it's been a pleasure having you on. And our tally so far has been 1, 1, and 2. You won a game and we draw twice, so the score is yet to be settled. I do feel that I've been pretty lucky in most of my games against Jeff, so I do look forward to another tough game with him as well.
Yeah. No, definitely tough games. I knew I was up against it when I drew you. I thought, how did I get you in the second round? But obviously, we both did well in the first round. So and now I've got Daniel
King next. I think your third round is against Dan King. So
yes,
pretty exciting. A win and a draw got you Dan King.
That should be fun. I haven't played Dan before, and obviously he's a fantastic player. So definitely looking forward to that.
All right, thank you very much. So once again, fans, do remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. With that, thank you very much again, Jeff, and signing off.
Thanks, Paige.